Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today I'm getting to 3 wide receiver sleepers for the 2023 fantasy football season. All of these guys going outside the top 40 at the position, and one as well in the majority of leagues is likely going undrafted, so be sure to stick around for those. If you guys enjoy the video, if you enjoy the content from me, be sure to subscribe. We're on the road to almost 30,000 subscribers here on the channel. Would love if you can help us get there, help us grow this community. Would really appreciate if you dropped a like. And as well, we'll get to a couple of comments from people in previous videos at the end of the video. If you guys have any fantasy football questions, any comments on these guys we're talking about, be sure to drop your comments down below. Would love to hear from you. And then finally, before we get to the first player, be sure to go check out Peace Collective. Get awesome gear like this, my Blue Jays crew neck for the summer. Going to the Jays game actually tomorrow as well. When this video, this video is dropping tonight, so going tomorrow. But you can get vintage sports apparel for all of your favorite teams in the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, you name it, they have it. My Chargers gear coming really soon as well for the NFL season. So go check them out. Awesome, awesome gear there. OwnersBox 10 gets you 10% off. I'll put that in the description and as well in the pinned comments. Let's get to our first player. The first guy I'm going with is a receiver on my favorite team, on the Los Angeles Chargers. It is Quinton Johnson. He's the wide receiver 44 going in the back half of the 9th round in fantasy football drafts right now. And the offensive coordinator change going from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore is going to be a significant upgrade for all wide receivers in this offense. Justin Herbert last season ranked 39th out of 41 qualified quarterbacks in average depth of target, just 6.9 yards. Embarrassing, putrid. When you have a quarterback of this type of arm talent and ability to make plays downfield, you should not be checking the ball down as often as this team did. The running back target rate was the highest in the NFL, over 22%, 22.6% on the season. You look at the Dallas Cowboys under Kellen Moore the last 2 years, that is around 15%, the bottom half of the NFL. So that is a significant separation here. Now, that's not to say this team offensively will target running backs at the exact same rate Moore did with the Cowboys. Austin Eckler is a terrific back when it comes to his receiving profile, but I guarantee you that this is going to decrease by a pretty significant margin, especially when you consider the fact that the Cowboys as well were a team that were top 5 in intermediate and deep targets the last 2 seasons under Moore. So I would expect this team to be pushing the ball downfield a lot more, targeting wide receivers a lot more, and targeting those running backs a lot less. Now, with the situation here with Johnston, he's of course the wide receiver 3 in this offense, but he's playing behind 2 guys in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams that have a tendency to miss time, especially Williams. He's a very risky pass catcher, especially as a downfield guy. Puts his body on the line, gets banged up, misses time. That happens pretty well every season. And I like with that opportunity with either of these guys potentially missing time. That was the case last year. That was the reason as well that Eckler got all of these opportunities as a receiver, was because Allen and Williams both missed times together. And we were forced with a Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, and really, I can't remember who the third guy was now. It was somebody that was consistently on the practice squad. But regardless, Carter wasn't even set up to be really a wide receiver in this offense. He was supposed to be a kick returner. So it's kind of the hand they were dealt. But the coordinator change is definitely going to help there. Johnson is a great long speed, deep play, contested catch guy, kind of similar to Williams with his size, but as well has great speed. I like him to be able to help the team make some big plays. It was a down year for Herbert in that deep target department, but in 2021, he led the league in deep ball completion percentage. So I would expect to bounce back, especially with this high quality talent here as their wide receiver 3, and including Williams as well in that department. So I love Johnston's profile. I love his talent. I love the situation a lot more than I like his talent, to be honest. But also, you look at the rookie receivers that had success last year, he has what they didn't. Like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Drake London. They're great talents. They had great seasons, but they didn't have great quarterback play. That's exactly what Johnson has coming into his first year. Yes, he's the wide receiver 3 for this team, but that is something that these other wide receivers that were, wide receiver 1s on their team as rookies, they didn't have the quarterback play Johnson does. So I'm very high on him heading into the year. The second guy, like I said, that is going undrafted in most leagues, I believe he's like the 17th round or so, it is Curtis Samuel. He's the wide receiver 73 right now. Now, his The reason I love him is a lot different from the reason that I like. Actually, it's not a lot different. There's an offensive coordinator change here as well, but definitely more statistically driven. With Johnson, we don't have a lot of these NFL numbers to go off of. With Samuel, we do. He finished as wide receiver 3 last season. He's now going basically undrafted in your fantasy leagues. I definitely don't think that should be the case. Ron Rivera brought him in when he was hired as the head coach. Loves what Curtis Samuel can do for this team offensively. They now make the coordinator change to Eric Bieniemy as the OC, and there could be some significant changes offensively for this team. Now, we're obviously looking at Bieniemy's tenure with the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, so I don't necessarily think that these changes will be as substantial as what we saw from Washington last year and what we got from the Chiefs last year. But let's just go a little bit off these numbers. I guarantee you the passing rate is going to increase. The Commanders really drove the ball on the ground a lot, way too much with Brian Robinson. They were a bottom 10 team in EPA per rush. I would expect to see, when you compare last year's team or last year's numbers for KC with Bieniemy and then last year's numbers for the Commanders, you're probably going to see a 10% increase in pass rate. Like, you're going to go from that low 50s, mid 50s to, I guarantee you, is going to be in the 60s with Bieniemy calling plays. And the other thing that was really interesting to me as I get into these numbers, this was a team that threw the ball a lot, had the best quarterback in the world, but their average depth of target was very low. Like, Mahomes was 32nd in ADOT, 7.6 yards. So that was a really low number. Again, 32nd, a bottom level number amongst qualified QBs, which were like 41 last year. So as much as this team passes the ball a ton, had a great quarterback, they didn't or push the ball downfield and look to make big plays, chunk plays. They got the ball to their guys and asked them to make plays and create space for themselves. Samuel does a great job of doing that. The other thing that I really like when you look at Samuel, the Chiefs target slot wide receivers, the Chiefs target rate to slot wide receivers the last 2 seasons with Bieniemy, 46.1%. Washington, it was just 34%. Over 12%, almost 12% increase there was in this or there could be in this department in this upcoming season. Sam Howell comes in as the quarterback. His last season at UNC, his leading receiver, Josh Downs, had a 41% target share, and he ran 95% of his routes from the slot. So why am I telling you all these slot numbers? Why am I telling you what this Bieniemy offense does with slot wide receivers? Well, it's because Curtis Samuel is the number 1 slot wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. He ran 120 more routes than the next highest guy from the slot. He ran 71.2% of his routes from the slot, and his ADOT, right around 7 yards. Like, this could be the perfect guy for this offense when you combine what Sam Howell can do with a slot wide receiver, when you take what Eric Bieniemy does with the slot wide receiver in his offense, and then Curtis Samuel is a dynamic after the catch threat. We saw him in good spurts last season with Carson Wentz as well to start the year. I really like what you're getting with Samuel as a guy you take with like the last pick of your draft, and I definitely think he's not similar to Quinton Johnson in that explosive plays, touchdowns I could see. I see him as a guy that potentially gives you a great floor if it projects to what it looks like heading into the season. And finally, we go to another rookie here. I really like Zay Flowers. He's the wide receiver 52 right now, going in the 11th round. Here's the deal. We'll see what happens when we get to training camp as we get closer to the season. I'm very much looking to be out on guys that come into the year banged up already. Rashad Bateman didn't really participate at all in the OTAs that the Ravens held. He has that Liz Frank fracture that he had surgery on. He had a PUP injection for it during training camp. That foot still doesn't seem to be right. I've not been a believer in Odell Beckham Jr. when it comes to fantasy the last couple seasons. I really don't think that's going to change for me. He still wasn't fully participating in practice. This guy's played 20 games in the last 3 years, 2 ACL tears. He's getting up there in age. I'm just not sold on investing in Odell Beckham Jr. at his price. Both of these guys are being drafted ahead of Zay Flowers, and I already have reasons for concern before the season has even started. So why would I not take the guy that is the wide receiver 52 going in the 11th round, the guy with the highest ADP between the three, and one I still have a lot of belief in to be able to translate, because he's a guy that stays on the field and stays healthy. He didn't miss a single game in college, played every single game in college at BC. The offense, too, for the Ravens is about to see some significant changes. Again, I'm going to look at the numbers from the last time Monken was an OC in the NFL in 2019. Doesn't necessarily mean that, these numbers are going to exactly translate, but they're going to translate, I think, a very, very good amount when you look at this offense. This team ran 11 personnel on just 12.5% of plays. absurd. They were running 11 personnel with Monken in 2019 at a 56% rate. So that means 11 personnel, for those of you that don't know, one running back, one tight end, you're going to see far more 3 wide receiver sets for this team offensively, like a significant increase. And I think we'll probably see close to a 20% increase in wide receiver targets this season. Obviously, they have these 3 guys. Monken comes in to definitely change what they're going to do philosophy-wise, scheme-wise, offensively. So we're going to see 3 guys in the field more. So that's going to help Zay Flowers in and of itself. But what I also really like is Flowers' speed and his ability to create separation and make big plays. Similarly, think about Marquise Brown in 2021, who had, dealt with a lot of drops, but still had a really good season for Lamar Jackson. I like Flowers' profile to be that type of guy for this team offensively, and with a play caller that will definitely look to throw the ball a little bit more and get his wide receivers on the field more. And the other thing I really like when you talk about the profile for Flowers, like despite the fact Boston College was the worst offensive line in all of Power 5. They were atrocious. They dealt with a ton of injuries. Their protection was terrible, but Flowers still managed to be a top 12 wide receiver in receptions of 20 plus yards, and his contested catch rate is a guy that's 5'9" with 66.7%. So I like what Zay Flowers can do as a big play target for this team. He's going to be on the field more when you look at the comparison of projecting this offense. When you compare previous seasons for Baltimore, he's going to be on the field a lot. He has the best chance to stay healthy as well. So why would I not take the chance on him in the 11th round compared to drafting Rashad Bateman or Odell Beckham Jr. rounds prior to that? All right, those are my 3 sleeper wide receivers for the upcoming fantasy season. Before we wrap things up, I got a couple of comments from people from previous videos that we'll kind of talk about quickly before we end things. So first one was from our running back rankings video that I dropped last week. We have it from Milk Truck here. He said, I like your list except one. I would move Bijan Robinson to 12, and the reason is he has not had a snap against faster pro players. I think this is going to be the most common argument against Bijan is, of course, the fact that he is a rookie. We don't have previous experience in the NFL to lean on when we're making these projections. But at the end of the day, you obviously lean on draft capital. We've seen it with guys in the top 10 like Saquon Barkley, like Leonard Fournette, to be able to translate into massive fantasy seasons right off the jump. And then there's those 2 players, but there's also just the fact that as well, you take this offense and you know exactly what it's going to be. And we talked about it when we were talking about Bijan. I even did a little bit of a video actually saying that he could lead the league in rushing yards on our 5-wide TikTok, that he could win the rushing title. Is this offense ran the ball at, I believe it was the only team that ran the ball, had more rushing attempts in a season the last 13 years was the Ravens in 2019 with Lamar Jackson when he won MVP. So, and we're not looking at a running quarterback as dynamic as Lamar Jackson with Desmond Ridder. So this is a team that ran the ball insanely well with Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson, and now they get this guy here who's a transcendent talent at the position. You got to lean on the volume, and if you rank him as the RB12 as opposed to the RB3 like I have him, you're never going to be able to draft him. Like, nobody's going to be drafting him at that value. You just won't be able to get him. People will be taking him way too early. And he's a guy that, as a person that drafts like probably 3 or 4 fantasy teams a year, I want to have one share of him, and there's no way I can have a share of him if he's my RB12 on the season too. Last one we'll get to. From the top 10 offenses video we dropped as well earlier this week, Jonathan Billingsley had, because I had the Lions in my top 10, he said, so the Lions were a top 5 scoring offense last year, and you only have them 10 after you saying they need respect. They're even better at each group. This makes no sense. So I think the reason I had the Lions as a top 10 offense was, again, relying, like he said, I wanted to give them respect for being such a great scoring offense last year. But when I built out the top 10, I left out the Minnesota Vikings. I left out the Baltimore Ravens in that top 10. And those are 2 teams I think have more talent on the field than the Lions do. Like, I like Jameson Williams. I think he's a very talented player. We haven't seen it translate to the NFL yet. We haven't seen his impact quite yet. He's missing the first 6 games. They traded away TJ Hawkinson. Sam Laporta comes in as a rookie potentially. There's other guys that probably get into that tight end group, that I'm really not sure about. I love what they have in the trenches. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a great option for them. But the wide receiver 3 spots up in the air too, with Marvin Jones in his 30s now. Don't have a lot of confidence in production. So when I look purely at talent, I don't love the Lions. But Ben Johnson has done a terrific job calling plays for this team offensively and really elevated Jared Goff's play at the quarterback spot. So talent-wise, they're not a top 10 team, but play calling-wise and what they did last year, I got to respect, put them in my top 10. That's really what was the reasoning for it. I know it does make sense when we take a top 5 scoring offense and don't have them as a top 5 offense, but a lot of this comes down to talent and skill, and the Lions to me aren't in the top 10 for that reason. But when you look at what they were able to do in the play caller, that's why they're in the top 10. All right, that's it for today's video. Again, be sure to check out Peace Collective. Use promo code OwnersBox10. And I forgot to mention this at the top as well. If you guys do want to win a free piece of merch from Peace Collective, anything you'd like, all you need to do, go to the site, which I'll include the pinned comment and in the description. Go to their site, pick something out, and just when you pick out the piece of merchandise, go to the link at the top, copy the link, paste it in the comments, and we're going to pick one person to give a free piece of merch to Peace Collective too. So go do that now. Again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Please do drop a sub if you did enjoy, like the video as well, and we will see you guys on the next one.